about something also in the pages of your website. I might not get the term right, but it's basically descension, that experience of higher vibrational energies that are light frequencies being available to the denser frequencies, and what kinds of symptomology that creates, what kinds of experiences that in and of itself create. And I know that for this population of certified practitioners and for children diagnosed with autism and some of the other families that we work with, it's almost like there is a constant state or a constant flux of becoming more, taking on more of who you really are. That's conscious choice. And yet there's also those kind of secondary kind of side effects of that as well. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, when we first embody, say we embodied 30 years ago or 40 years ago, we each come out at a certain frequency. And so we have a certain level of physical and emotional, mental and energetic density in our body. And because the soul sort of needs that initially to ground here. But then what happens is that because we reach maximum separation from spirit, from God consciousness in 1987. And then after that, we started to return rapidly. We started rising in frequency. The game of separation is ending, because everything that can be learnt by all that is by having parts of itself. It's us feeling separate from God, which we actually are anyway, feeling separate in consciousness. As we start to return back in consciousness to source, ultimately, the frequency of our body needs to raise, and we basically move from these dense physical bodies and we're becoming lighter and lighter. What's happening is that the higher frequency parts of us are embodying. They embody through the crown chakra primarily, and you can get like tingling sensations or electric ants on the top of your head. And there are specific what's called light body integration channels, higher consciousness channels, which the light is trying to flow through to awaken us. Because ultimately, what the light is trying to do is it's trying to come into our bodies, it's trying to connect to our DNA in each cell, and it's trying to fully awaken the 2 chemical strands, but it's trying to awaken the 10 multidimensional strands of the DNA to wake us back into ultimately beings of light. For those of you who've seen the movie Cocoon, the beings in there, that's what we actually look like when we turn fully to a being of light. And so if enough light comes in and connects to your DNA, what it does is it basically releases a lot of the thought forms and dense thought forms and blocking energies, which keep us dense in the physical body. And as it releases it, you can feel like you got the flu sometimes, because all those toxins are coming into your bloodstream. Because what spirit does is it progressively gives you a burst of light, of what we call high light, high consciousness. When the time is right, you get that tingling on your head, it goes through your body, and it's going to raise the whole frequency of your body. So you may feel like you've got flu-like symptoms. You may feel like, old emotional stuff's coming out of me, because the higher frequencies push this out the cells, and different what we call pictures of reality come in, high dimensional pictures of reality come into your consciousness, so you start to see things differently. Okay, you may see the places like an illusion, like in the movie The Matrix, which some of you I'm sure have seen, when Neo is in the beginning of the movie. They just stop the training program, and he's walking around and everyone's gone and frozen. Okay, so what happens is that you start to see that it is an illusion, the reality. It's a very clever illusion, which is being created in such a way that we feel it's initially real, but as we bring more high consciousness in, we start to see more and more of it. It's just a big program that actually we choose to participate with, and we start to see what people are really doing. We see their unconsciousness that they're involved in. And so as that comes in, we progressively rise in consciousness. We start to reconnect to more of higher self, higher consciousness. And so lots of fear and survival issues will come out of the body when we do that. Deeper emotional programs will come out, and your DNA literally starts to awaken. And if you continue that process, which comes in waves, what happens is that we have what we call light body structures. We have specific structures which we put on our body. They look like quartz crystals, actually. It's one set of them. They're fifth-dimensional structures which are in our head and upper body. And we put them in all the different areas of our body to block higher capabilities like clairvoyance, telepathy, and so to limit our brain function. And those structures are pushed on by this higher consciousness trying to come in. That's why we get headaches, because they're blocking. We can feel like our head's going to burst sometimes. We can't think straight. Lower backache is caused often when light comes in. We have structures called divinity thresholds, which are from the waist downwards, and they're like seventh dimensional structures, which are like perspex rods and plates, and they stop us from fully embodying, coming into our body. So they're designed to keep us asleep. And then we also have what are called astral structures, or astral devices in different parts of our body, which create certain karmic experiences. We may say you had a past life issue as a warrior. You may have past life armor on you, which is going to limit how much consciousness you can bring in. That's going to create more conflict in this lifetime often. So all these low frequency structures need to be removed, and our system needs to be recalibrated and reprogrammed to actually allow us to embody that higher consciousness and bring it into the reality. So we gradually rise in frequency. So eventually the aim is that we all turn to beings of light, or the light workers anyway, at least. So if you raise the frequency of your body enough, one day your soul may just switch on the right encodements, and you'll turn to a being of light, and you'll fully retain all memory of what it was like to be in this physical body. But you'll be at a much higher state of vibration. You'll literally be light. And that's sort of the process, the slow motion process of ascension that's going on at the moment. But that's speeding up.
Yeah, it is speeding up, and it also feels like this whole recurrent pattern of fatigue is also part of this kind of adjustment, I would assume within the density of the physical body to, adjust to that light.
Yeah, because it's when you release emotional programs because of the light coming in, the body has had to work very hard to hold on to those programs. And we have a devic consciousness. Just like plants have devas, we have a devic consciousness of thousands of what we call keepers of the human legacy. I mean, for those of you who've got children, when a child was born, you sort of got to wonder, how does 100 trillion cells come out in perfection pretty much 99% of the time? And it requires this devic consciousness to actually make sure that happens. And so this devic consciousness actually holds on to all the emotional programming in the cells. And as the light comes into the body, it has to start letting it go. And as it lets go, the strain and effort of holding on to it is released out of the body as well. That's why we get tired. Because we've let go of something which we might have held in our body for so long. And we also get tired because of the toxicity that comes out of the body as well. It's physiological toxicity releases as we raise frequency.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, I definitely have had some experiences with a few conversations as of late with those keepers, and amazing how willing they are to work with you as you begin to lose some of those other structures or release some of those other structures that you were talking about, so that light really can interface with the body. And very, very helpful at that point, Yeah,
because we normally ignore our body. We feel that it's just a vehicle for us to function in reality, but actually it's a fully conscious, sentient being. And if we engage with the body consciousness to work with us, then it will actually help us embody that higher consciousness more gracefully, and actually life flows more easily. If we have physical aches and pains or emotional issues, we can just talk to it and say, well, can you just, if we get to release that, then they will, if you've got actually a good relationship with them. But they used to be ignored by us because of the scientific conditioning that we have on what reality is and how we function.